All right, folks, buckle up, because what we have here is one of the most ridiculous legal defenses I've ever seen. Robert Contreras, the owner of 181 Westchester Avenue, is desperately trying to dodge accountability yet again, and his legal team just filed one of the most laughable attempts at dismissal I've ever seen. Let's go step by step and break down why this is pure nonsense. The core argument: a convenient, unsigned lease excuse. Contreras' legal team, led by Harrington, Ocko Monk LLP, argues that the lease wasn't signed by the landlord and therefore it's not valid. This is the entire basis of their argument. Let's unpack this for a second. The law firm negotiated the lease, received a copy, agreed to terms, and moved into the space after spending thousands of dollars on renovations. The landlord actively participated in the build-out, helping determine office sizes, paint colors, and even installing doors and wiring that were specifically requested by the tenant. The tenant paid rent and acted in full accordance with the lease. But suddenly, Contreras and his team are arguing that because they never formally signed it, none of that matters? Does this sound like an honest mistake? Or a setup to defraud a tenant by luring them into renovations and expenses, only to pull the rug out from under them? Statute of frauds, the technicality defense that fails. The lawyer is using New York's statute of frauds to argue that any lease over 1 year must be signed by both parties to be enforceable. That might sound good in theory, but let's be real. If the landlord never intended to honor the lease, why did they allow the build-out to continue for months? Why did the landlord provide access, keys, and occupancy to the law firm? If the lease was invalid, why did they demand extra money for construction after the fact? This isn't just a contractual dispute. This is fraud. The law firm was induced into making costly investments in a property under false pretenses. That's not just civil liability, that's criminal fraud. Blaming the victim. The absurd no unconscionable harm argument. The defense then tries to dismiss promissory estoppel, which is a legal doctrine that prevents one party from going back on a promise after the other party has relied on it. The argument? The law firm's losses aren't egregious enough to justify enforcement of the lease. This is insane. The plaintiff spent thousands of dollars on office renovations, signed and committed to a multi-year lease, was forced into an illegal lockout despite paying rent, had to delay and reorganize their entire business operations multiple times. And yet Contreras' lawyers are arguing this isn't serious enough to warrant legal protection? At this point, the defense isn't even trying to argue that Contreras was ethical. They're just saying he didn't break the law bad enough to be punished. The real reason for the lawsuit games: Contreras' dirty history. And let's not forget the bigger picture here. Robert Contreras is already caught up in a federal lawsuit with Chubb Insurance, who is trying to recoup legal fees from another case. What was that case about? Oh, just installing hidden cameras in the women's bathrooms at 181 Westchester Avenue. This is not a landlord making an innocent mistake. This is not a simple contract dispute. This is a pattern of deception, fraud, and outright criminal behavior. Conclusion: why Robert Contreras must be held accountable. The lease was negotiated, agreed to, and acted upon. The landlord allowed major investments, then pulled a bait and switch. The law firm was forced into an illegal lockout. Contreras has a history of fraudulent and even criminal behavior. This defense is not just weak, it's offensive. This is a case where both civil and criminal liability should be on the table. Because if Robert Contreras and his lawyers get away with this, he will keep pulling the same scam on new tenants while dodging responsibility for his actions. And if you think that's bad, just wait until 181 Westchester Avenue is converted into apartments, and he starts scamming residential tenants next. Stay tuned, because this case isn't over, and we're going to keep exposing every dirty trick they try.